You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Welcome to Unbiased Science,
where we bring scientific method to the madness.
We're your hosts, Dr. Jess Steyer
and Dr. Sarah Scheinman.
And this week, we have a fellow podcaster extraordinaire, brilliant science communicator, Abby Sharp, joining us to talk all about diet and nutrition. We've seen your questions, and we will get through as many as possible. So before we dig in, we'll do our 1-minute recap of what's going on in public health. And I got to tell you that recording this episode is a little bit of a palate cleanser because I have been watching the ACIP meeting all morning. ACIP is the, ACIP, Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. Sorry, I always use the abbreviation. And so it's a 2-day meeting. Today is September 18th, where they're talking about MMRV, the measles, mumps, rubella, and varicella vaccine, as well as the Hep B birth dose vaccine. And then tomorrow, they're going to talk about and vote on the COVID-19 vaccine recommendations. So I'm actually taking a pause. They haven't voted at the time of this recording, but just really quickly, what's being discussed is that there is a slight increase in risk of febrile seizure after the MMRV combination vaccine that's slightly elevated for kids who are under 4 years of age. The risks of of febrile seizures are extremely low. A lot of parents choose to get that combination vaccine because it means fewer shots, fewer trips to the pediatrician, for another vaccine dose. And so that's being voted on today. And that's a biggie because if the committee basically doesn't recommend the MMRV for kids who are under 4, that means that programs like VFC, which typically cover childhood vaccines and make them no cost for families, especially those who don't have insurance coverage, that they wouldn't be covered. So there are a lot of implications for this. And then the other vote today is for the Hep B birth dose. There's talks that birth dose might be pushed to as late as 4 years. And that's problematic because the Hep B birth dose is really a safety net because Hep B testing is imperfect. Not all mothers have access to prenatal care and proper Hep B testing. So a lot of us are watching closely, and we will share updates as we have them. Sarah, would you like to read the bio of our incredible guest today?
I would love to. All right, guys, we have a real expert in the house today. So Abby Sharp is a world-renowned registered dietitian, content creator, and award-winning author, TV personality, and host of the podcast Bite Back, as well as CEO of Abby's Kitchen Incorporated and co-founder of New Theory. Woof. With over 2 million followers across social media. Holy crap, 2 million? Good for you. Abby shares her core philosophy with a pleasurable relationship with food. Your body and yourself is a fundamental secret to good health. She has made it her mission to dismantle diet culture, hell yeah, debunk nutrition misinformation online, and help people achieve food freedom for good. This is awesome, Abby. I'm so excited to have you on. With her signature science and sass, Abby is one of the world's most trusted sources of nutrition information. Thank you so much for being here with us, Abby. I'm so excited to hear from you.
Thank you guys so much. I'm really excited to be here. So thank you again.
Well, and there's no shortage of questions that we could ask you. But our first question that we ask all guests is, what is a news item that caught your attention recently, maybe in the last few weeks, that you think people should care about?
Wow, it's been a rough few weeks in the news cycle, I would say. I'm just grateful to be Canadian every day of my life. But I think in general, just kind of watching the very rapid degrading of our, our confidence in medical authority in general. I have fears over this kind of autism witch hunt and the effect it's going to have not on families with neurodivergent kiddos, but of course, people, all sorts of kids who may be facing downstream effects of not having access to vaccines, or there being so much misinformation about vaccines that they choose not to get them. And so, yeah, I'm kind of shaking in my boots as to what's gonna unfold over the next few years. But I don't think it's gonna be good.
I'm really happy to hear. It's interesting to me that you bring up vaccines. I think there's this dichotomy, this false dichotomy that people are setting up with like vaccines and infectious disease prevention and then diet, nutrition and chronic disease. And it's like, no, these things are all related. We have to care about all of them. So thank you. All right, so maybe we can start with a topic. This is an overarching topic because we got so many questions about this. So just want to pick your brain about protein. So now the question is there such a thing as too much protein, too little protein? What about different protein sources, meat-based, plant-based, what else? I mean, there's so many things, but let's just start.
Yeah.
What do you want to share about protein?
Well, I mean, I think, yes, protein has always been kind of the media darling of the macros. It can do no harm, unlike, every other macro has had its moment of shame, whether it was fat and then I guess feel like it's carbohydrates. But protein is very important. I want to reiterate that we may be kind of overdoing it with this concept of like protein maxing and our real obsession over protein in everything. But protein is very important, and it is very important for women, especially as we are moving through perimenopause, menopause. It's important for blood sugar regulation. So for my friends with insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes. It's important for folks who have weight loss or weight maintenance, goals. So it's important for so many more reasons than just beyond building muscle in the gym kind of thing. So I think, there's a lot of hype around it, but some of that hype is warranted. It's just like everything, we just take to an extreme. And so, and you look at the kind of bare minimum recommendation, you're looking at like 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. That is not a lot. And so, the argument a lot of people have who are, like anti-protein say, well, no one's protein deficient. And that is correct. We are not protein deficient because that baseline is set very low, and most of us are just over consuming calories in general. But most adults will do better, much higher than that, around 1.2 to 1.6, 1.8 grams of protein per kilogram per day, even up to 2 grams per kilogram if very active and older, or based on specific goals. And so that is when, we want to be really focusing on quality protein, getting what I call more protein bang for your caloric buck. And so, but of course, like anything, we can overdo it. And I've seen a lot of girls on TikTok with these what ain't a days where every meal is just like another protein snack. It's like, well, then I had the protein shake, then I had the protein oats, then I had the protein, bar, then I had the protein mixed in my Greek yogurt. And I'm like, is there any fat in this day? Is there any carbohydrates? Is there any fiber? Because we can overdo it when it's displacing other very important nutrients in our day. So it really has to be about balance. And we're not really great as a society when it comes to balance.
Yeah, 100%. That's definitely the case. So I wanted to ask you then, given all these TikTok trends, what are the health impacts of like too much protein?
So for the most part, it's, protein. I know there's a lot of like myths. Oh, if you just eat one too many eggs, your kidneys are going to shut down. Mm-hmm. Protein is generally safe. High protein diets are generally safe, up to, 2.2 grams per kilogram, even more in some folks. But of course, like I said, The challenge or the danger lies in the omission of other important foods. Right. So if your whole day is just, chicken, eggs, it may be red meat, maybe a protein shake, maybe lots of dairy, and there's no fiber-rich produce, there's no omega-3 healthy fats, there's no antioxidants from, these plant-based foods that we know carry so many important benefits. That is really where the kind of worry for me lies. So it's less so about the protein, it's more about, well, what are you cutting out to add more protein?
So you did just mention plant-based, and I did want to come back to that. So any comment on the difference between, meat-based, plant-based proteins? Because we get that question a lot. Is one better than the other? I think you sort of touched on it a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it really comes down to how you define quote unquote better. And I'll tell you what my take is. First of all, they both build muscle. Okay. We have ample evidence that you absolutely can get enough protein and build muscle. And, if you want to lose weight, whatever your goal is, you can do that on a fully plant-based diet. When it comes to kind of the bioavailability of animal proteins versus plant proteins, animal protein does tend to have a more balanced amino acid profile. So it's more conducive to promoting muscle protein synthesis, especially because it has some key muscle protein synthesis amino acids like leucine. Whereas most plant proteins, there are some that are considered quote unquote complete proteins. Most plant-based proteins are missing or are low in one or more, essential amino acids. But we used to think that, that was a huge, big problem. Oh my God, we're missing lysine in this, so we're never going to be able to build muscle. No, and we also used to think that you'd have to kind of food combine different types of plant-based proteins to kind of create this perfect pairing where all the amino acids would be accounted for. But we know our body is very, very smart. It holds a reservoir of amino acids, basically waiting. It's a pool of amino acids that can be called on to be, used for different things, whether it's for skin repair, for collagen, for building muscle. And so as long as you're getting a wide variety of different types of protein sources in your day, you're going to be okay. You're going to be able to build that muscle. You're going to be able to build that collagen, etc. We also know that most plant-based proteins come with what I call, they're usually dual citizens is what I call, because I've got a framework that I've kind of trademarked and it's become famous called the Hunger Crushing Combo, where we're talking about sources of fiber, protein, and healthy fats. Well, most plant-based proteins, let's say beans, legumes, nuts, quinoa, all those things, they generally fall into having some protein, but they also have some fiber. And most North Americans, 95% of North Americans, are not getting enough fiber. Mm-hmm. So with the plant-based protein, you got a twofer. You get a 2-for-1. And we all love a deal. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of merit in trying to incorporate as many plant-based proteins into your diet so that you do get you get the most nutrient bang for your caloric buck, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it goes back to what you were saying about that balance, how important that balance is, and how there's not so much a danger of having too much protein, but the danger comes in when you're substituting the protein for other things. And it sounds like plant-based proteins kind of have more of that balance.
Correct. Yes. And then if you're looking on the flip side, if you were to make your entire diet a la carnivore of red meat, it's okay, the protein itself is not the problem, but it's likely the saturated fat that is coming with those choices. So it really does you have to look at the big picture when it comes to foods.
So before we hit record, we were talking, Abby and I both have young children, right? I have a son who's turning 9, my daughter 7.5. Abby, I think did you say you have 2 boys, 5 and 7? Yeah. And they're really starting to be very aware of their bodies and commenting on their bodies, and is their weight, quote unquote, appropriate, and, concerned with the way they look. And so we got a lot of questions about creatine, which I guess teenage boys in particular are taking creatine to beef up, right? To bulk up. So any thoughts on creatine? Is it safe? Is it dangerous? Is it, obviously, I'm sure it's never that black and white, right?
Right. Well, especially when we're talking about teens. So just a little background on creatine, because I think perception is definitely changing because it is becoming a little bit more mainstream. But traditionally, when we've heard the word creatine, we've just thought, oh, it's like a bodybuilder in the gym, really like greased up men. But it's essentially it's a peptide made up of 3 amino acids. And without getting like too into the nitty gritty of what it does, it essentially regenerates ADP into ATP, which is our energy source at the cellular level. And the human adult body produces around 1 gram of creatine per day. But women biosynthesize a little bit less, more like 0.8 grams per day. And we also can get it from our diet. So mostly from red meat and seafood. We can get it like about 1 to 2 grams per day from that. So for most omnivores, our creatine stores sit between 60 to 80% full. Women tend to fall on the lower end of the range because we typically have diets lower in creatine than men. And ditto for, vegetarians and vegans, who usually their stores are only reaching like 55 to 65%. So the goal of creatine supplementation is to really get those stores as close to 100% as possible so that you can improve strength and exercise performance. The good news is it is one of the most heavily studied kind of supplements there are, strength enhancing supplements that we have. And it has been shown to be remarkably safe and very effective. And, I'm mostly familiar with the evidence for women because, again, this is just like we're generally an underserved population when it comes to, the kind of muscle building supplements out there. But we do know that it can lead to significant increases in lean body mass, both in advanced female athletes and also people who are completely new to athletes. And that is actually really important in older populations where we're seeing improvements in strength even without having to do exercise. But when it comes to teenage boys, because again, they are hearing a lot of things online. And this is again, a huge fear of mine with all the, looks maxing and the toxic masculinity. This is kind of how it starts, in my opinion. And so we do have to be just cautious what our young kids and young boys are consuming, because again, we've always thought of eating disorders as something that only affects skinny little girls, but actually men are really quickly catching up here. And so it just looks different. So I do prefer a food first approach, lots of parental oversight. If there are specific goals, your kid is playing a specific sport, he needs to get more power. He wants to get more power in his sport. Definitely work with a registered dietitian, a pediatric registered dietitian on this. There is some data in adolescents, but it's still quite small. So I would, again, work with the dietitian or your professional and make sure, especially when you're dealing with kids, but always, always, always make sure that you're choosing a supplement that is third-party tested.
Sure. And Abby, is there a way to get creatine in food sources, or is it only through supplementation?
Yeah. So like I mentioned, it's largely through animal or seafood-based foods, which is why we see much higher levels in omnivores, I guess even carnivores, like people who do consume animal-based products and seafood versus our vegetarian and vegan friends.
So I'm curious, what other trends are you seeing right now that really jump out at you as being problematic? I mean, there are a bunch that I'm seeing too, but I want to hear, is there anything that jumps out at you?
Yeah, I think for me, the one that has been a persistent sore spot for me is this whole Skinny-Tok era that we are living in. Just kind of for folks who maybe haven't come across Skinny-Tok content, as there have been some efforts made to try to censor it a little bit, but of course, you know, they'll just find other words for it or other ways to say what they want to say. But just kind of basically, this is a subculture on TikTok and Instagram that's glorifying extreme thinness. And it often promotes disordered eating behaviors. And, you know, these messages often get kind of twisted into these narratives about discipline and feminism and self-worth and having a luxurious lifestyle. And obviously, because of the way, you know, social media creates these echo chambers where you just kind of see the same thing over and over and over again until you just accept that as fact and truth. And it's very hard for young folks to get away from this. And so, you know, the women on Skinny-Tok are sharing these hyper restrictive tips that are really giving like Reddit thread, you know, pro Anna, you know, circa 90s. They're telling people to like glorify hunger and like equate it to your body giving you an applause, and to eat small to be small, and to limit yourself to only like a few bites of food, and, you know, to force yourself on that walk even when your body is saying, no, I'm tired, and to call yourself a fat pig to like, quote unquote, motivate you into losing weight. It's really giving like Jillian Michaels' Biggest Loser, like toxic, like no pain, no gain kind of attitude. And we know that actually does not work. So I do really worry about the young people consuming this Skinny-Tok content.
I have a random question for you, and I'm sorry, this is far less, because that was heavy. I'm going to go light. Well, I don't know if this is lighter. No pun intended, my goodness. Colostrum. Are you seeing colostrum supplements or whatever it is everywhere, or no? Is this just my algorithm?
I don't see it everywhere. Okay. I think that there are potentially there is some data for some specific kind of conditions, but for the most part, it's not something that everyone needs to be or should be taking on the regular. You know, when it comes to all the different supplements in the arsenal of like what I think are going to help move the needle for a lot of people, especially when it comes to gut health, because that's kind of like what we're talking about here. It wouldn't be like the first thing on the list, I would say, for anyone, or really like anywhere on the top 10. So yeah, we're always going to see supplements come and go. Particularly, you know, the gut health space is huge, and it does open up, you know, for a lot of grifters to come in with a lot of like magical sounding solutions. But I think there are just a handful that are going to stay the test of time. And research is always evolving. So we're always trying to keep our finger on the pulse for everything we hear.
What about diets like the true keto diet or like very low carb diets? Are these still happening? Are folks still doing these?
It's a great question. I definitely think we're hearing a lot less about them, particularly as we saw the kind of Ozempic GLP-1 era come into play. Like keto was huge, like even just like five years ago. It's very funny. Like, I mean, I'd have to do a timeline of my career, because there was like a heavy like vegan era where everything was raw vegan, frugivore, like only eating fruit, only eating raw foods. And then the pendulum swung to this like carnivore keto. We're eating butter now. We're eating like cheese on bacon burgers and stuff like that. And now I think with the GLP-1s being center stage, I think a lot of people have realized like, oh, I don't want to have to torture myself by not eating a carb anymore kind of thing. Because keto was kind of touted as this magic bullet to help you feel satisfied and satiated and full and crush cravings for sweet foods. But if you have a pharmaceutical agent that is essentially doing that without you having to be so, mindful of it, I guess, and perhaps also not have to deal with some of the consequences or side effects of keto, which again, there's side effects of GLP-1s too. I'm certainly not saying that there's not, but I think that that's probably the bulk of the keto dieters' voice has been silenced because the GLP-1s have been moving in.
Sure. So what about natural GLP-1s and like these patches that we're seeing promoted on social media? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing.
Big sigh.
I generally take issue with, I think that the research we have constantly evolving and rapidly evolving on weight loss drugs like GLP-1s and other peptides is very exciting for a lot of people. Like I'm all for staying on top of exciting, research and trends. But of course, when something has such power to make such a big difference when it comes to weight management and blood sugar management and food noise for a large population, then we're going to get all these grifters coming in with these like, oh yeah, this is a natural GLP-1, just eat this recipe, and it's faux Zempic kind of thing. I've seen a couple supplement brands market themselves as faux Zempic, and that always pisses me off because I am here thinking there's no supplement out there. There's certainly no patch out there that is going to be able, like a transdermal patch that is going to be able to deliver the same results as a powerful injection like Ozempic or Mounjaro. And the patches, for example, like I've seen them advertised now a few ways. They claim to curb cravings and help with weight management. They've got, these quote unquote evidence-based ingredients. The first ingredient is often like berberine, which does actually have some evidence to support its use with weight loss and PCOS and type 2 diabetes. But the dose used in any of these things, whether that's like a supplement or a patch, is so much lower than what we see used in the literature. And when it comes to the patches specifically, like we don't have literature on transdermal berberine absorption, and how that yields clinical weight loss results. So I think again, like it's exciting to see the possibilities, but we're nowhere near being able to like realistically, recommend these things, especially in lieu of a medication. Like what I worry about is somebody not taking their metformin or their Ozempic that their doctors prescribed to them for their blood sugar management, and they're just like slapping on one of these like Goop endorsed like body stickers, basically. Hey. Just what it feels like to me.
And it just all feels like I get the marketing ick, and it's so predatory. You mentioned PCOS, like there are all these things being marketed to women who, as you said, are going through, perimenopause, menopause, and, PCOS and all these other issues. And then what about, I've seen like diets based around your menstrual cycle. Oh, yeah. Have you seen that?
I have. And okay. I also kind of hate that. I mean, I understand why it's appealing, because we as women, when it comes to science research, like we've been grossly underrepresented, underserved. And so for us to like feel like, okay, we are different. We have different needs. So our diet should be different than men's. Our training protocol should be different than men's. But at the same time, I think what this actually may do is kind of just like box us in to, another set of rules that now we have to follow perfectly at different times. And you're like looking at you're tracking your cycle and be like, oop, it's the luteal phase. I can't do lunges this week kind of thing. Like you're just creating more restrictions. And I'm not for that, because we're not a homogenous group as women, right? Like we don't all have the same feeling luteal phase and all have the same feeling follicular phase and the same cravings and the same that. And so I think that distracts us from actually just like tuning into our actual body cues and asking yourself, like, am I more tired than usual this week? Okay, maybe I'm just going to pull back. Like, listen to your body. Like, forget what your period tracking app says. Like, listen to your body. If you're feeling low energy because you have a very heavy flow, maybe that is a good time to have a little bit more iron. If you are finding yourself getting lots of cravings during the luteal phase, totally be, mindful about getting in that protein and the fiber and the healthy fats, the hunger crushing combo. But really, I think things like sleep, hydration, stress, general nutrition that really should be applying across the month through the cycle has a much bigger impact on, your performance or how you feel throughout the month than what your app says you should be eating or doing.
I'm obsessed with you. No, everything you're saying, it's nuance and it's balanced, and you're not fear mongering, and it's not like these apps where they're, everything is all good or all bad, and there's a rating system, and don't eat this, and it's just such a breath of fresh air in a space that has been so saturated with really crappy predatory information and marketing schemes. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Sarah agrees.
I do.
She's nodding.
I do. And I would, do you think we're sort of getting to that time? You think we should get to the closing question, or is there anything else
you ask it?
I just wanted to know, Abby, is there something right? Because we like to, there's a lot of doom and gloom right now in our space. So we'd like to ask you, is there something right now that's giving you hope about public health and science and just in the world right now?
Honestly, it's listening to other science communicators like yourselves. And, there's just, it's basically all I've wanted to fill my social media feeds with, aside from like true crime podcast stuff, because that is also fun for me. But like, I feel so invigorated watching all of these incredible science communicators, like, often like kind of go out on a limb and expect that, they're going to get hate, and they're going to get a lot of people in their comment section disagreeing with them. And in some cases, like some of those comment sections can feel really dangerous and scary. And I'm just so happy that I have such amazing people like fighting the good fight beside me. And like I said earlier in the show, like I'm Canadian. I'm not in the trenches like a lot of my American science communicator colleagues are. So I'm always trying to support them in trying to, set the record straight on a lot of the misinformation that is kind of spewed across the America right now. But it is just so exciting to see us really just like stand for science and fight for science, because that's really, we've got to. What else is there?
Okay, just fell in love.
Jess is going to start crying.
I'm swooning over here. Sarah knows I would cry at the drop of a hat. Abby, can you let folks know where we can follow all the amazing things that you're doing?
Yes. So I've got a YouTube channel, Abby's Kitchen, TikTok and Instagram, also at Abby's Kitchen. My podcast is Bite Back with Abby Sharp. And I've got a supplement line called New Theory, where an evidence-based, gut-friendly supplement line for folks like me who have temperamental guts. So yes, thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you, Abby. And Sarah, you want to take us home?
Of course. Thank you all for tuning in. We hope you learned a thing or two. I certainly did. Please join us next week on your trusted source for no nonsense, just science.